Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here with Bob Stewart, and you know that when Ben's not around, that means Bob and I have got something planned for you. So, Bob, how are you doing today, and are you ready for the fun?
Chad, we've got it's as close to Ben Kinney as you can get here today, I think, maybe. But I'm excited for
you. Are right.
I'm excited for this guy. I feel like I spent the first 35 years of my life. I don't know when we. I got connected with Ben 7 years ago, really closely. I spent the first 35 years of my life, not thinking about my money at all. It controlled me. I spent it, I made a lot, and I spent every dollar. Guys.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do with it, Bob?
No, I don't think so. I'm learning now that's not what we're supposed to do with all of it anyway. So I'm excited to talk to somebody like Derrick, and I wish I would have had more people like this in my life, 15 years ago.
Now, Bob, you said it. We're as close to Ben Kinney as we possibly can be. And you've given away Derrick is our guest that's going to be joining us. Yet what you haven't given away is, while there's no relation, it's Derrick Kinney, and he's going to talk money with us. I mean, it sounds like we've just got Ben here, basically. Yeah, so, Derrick, welcome to Win, Make, Give.
Hey, it's great to be with you both. I'm looking forward to this, and tell Ben I said hi, because apparently we're probably related at some point.
Somewhere. What we haven't told you or Ben is that this is actually an audition, because you talk money. You've already got the last name. Bob and I just figured we could sub Ben out for you if need be.
The much better looking version of a Kinney.
There you go. Absolutely. We're moving in the right direction. All right. So, Derrick, let's put all the fun aside. Let's get serious for at least a moment before we let Bob start talking again. Introduce yourself to our audience. Who are you, and what the heck are you doing on the Win, Make, Give network?
Well, this is a great show. I can tell the vibe on this show is positive. And when you talk about money, let's keep it positive. That's what it is. So let me go back a bit. This was July of 2019. So every year in July, I go on a sabbatical. And I take about 5 days all by myself. And I ask myself 3 questions. How can I be a better husband, a better father, and a better business owner? And it's a chance to kind of get one with my thoughts. I think, pray, I journal. And I'd been thinking about this for a couple years. I enjoyed having a very successful financial planning practice. It was 25 years, but I enjoyed the media and speaking and some of those things. The company I was with, there were some compliance challenges with that. I really couldn't go full bore on the national scene like I wanted to. And I had to ask myself, I love what I do, but is it what I want to keep doing for the next chapter of my life? And so away in Boston, that sabbatical, I came to the realization that it was time to sell the practice. And I called my wife. I said, honey, are you sitting down? She said, yeah. I told her what I was thinking about. She said, you know what? Let's not wait. Let's just do it. I believe in you. So she was the kick in the pants to say, let's do this thing. So fast forward then, I put the practice on the market. There's a couple different ways to sell a large practice. Found a really good buyer who our values aligned and so forth. But I'll tell you this, one of the hardest things I ever did was to personally call each of those clients and tell them what I was doing and tell them goodbye. There were tears, there was support. One lady, and I joke about this now, she said, Derrick, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, just buy a Corvette. It's a lot cheaper. We still laugh about that. But the bottom line is some people cried, they were sad, but people were happy that I was actually doing what I'd helped them do in terms of their life goals. Now their advisor was doing the same.
Awesome. Okay. So 700 questions came up from all of that from me. Quick first one. Do you have the Corvette?
I don't have the Corvette. Okay. I may have a little Matchbox car I might buy, but no Corvette.
Well, okay, all right. Real quick, the practice, you were a money manager for people, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Financial advisor, right?
Yeah. So financial advisors. So basically managing money for clients, doing detailed financial planning, really simply walking alongside them as they made all of their critical financial decisions is what I enjoyed doing. It was all about the relationship much more than just the numbers.
Okay.
So we're bringing in an expert here when we're going to talk about money and all the things that we're going to talk about. Next question I had for you in there was your sabbatical, right? You take that every year. That's a quick little getaway for you to basically have time with you to process these things that you need to process, asking yourself those 3 powerful
Derrick,
questions.
Do you do this in a 5-star resort, or do you do this in a tent?
Motel 6 wasn't on the list. I'll put it that way. Tell you what I find, and this may sound funny, but I tend to be the best version of myself in places where I feel the most creative and comfortable. So, for example, I like to go to the beach. I
Yeah.
like to be around the water where it's refreshing, it's rejuvenating. Boston, I love the history. I just love the vibe that's there. And what I like to do is just be by myself, which can be so weird to talk about because it's so quiet and so lonely, candidly. But what I realized was I needed to invest in myself 3 to 4 days to make sure the rest of those 360 days are the best possible days I could live.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, if you've been a listener of Win Make Give, you've heard us talk about Ben when he would turn right. That was a spontaneous, almost sabbatical that Ben had with himself that he needed. But here, Derrick is purposefully planning that. And audience, take that, right? You don't have to take 5 days. Take just one day where you wake up and road trip yourself somewhere within a reasonable distance and go ask yourself. Now, the 3 questions you ask yourself, Derrick, I wanted to confirm. How do I, what do I, what was the actual wording? Because questions matter so much.
Yeah. How do I be a better husband? How do I be a better father? And how do I be a better business owner? And what I would tell people listening right now is it's not enough just to go away because anybody can do that. Then you find yourself a channel surfing or going to the mall. You want to go there with an agenda and you want to have purpose. And as I like to say, you have to burn the brain cells so other people don't. If you can create a vision and a plan for exactly what you want out of your life, then it's a lot easier for people to buy into your vision and want to come alongside you because they know that you've given it some thought and you're purposeful about what really drives your passion.
I love it. Bob, I think your wife's answer to those questions might be stay on sabbatical a little bit.
You don't know me like that, Chad. How dare you? How dare you?
All right. So here we've got a guy who we know is purposeful about growing himself. We've got a guy who's purposeful about helping others with their money. And he's a Kinney. All right. So obviously it fits. It sounds like, again, we've got a perfect substitute if we ever need for Ben. Where do you want to start? I mean, Bob and I could go way back to we didn't have the upbringing and the conversations and mindset that went with where do you usually start though, Derrick, when you want to talk about money with people?
Well, I like to ask people 2 questions. First of all, are you making the money that you feel like you're worth right now? And do you feel like you're making the impact in the world you've always wanted? And if you answer no to either of those questions, I believe there's a better way for your money today. And when we think about COVID for so many people has been a big reset button. People are stepping back, they're evaluating what's required and what's optional in their financial lives. And what they're realizing is that money is good and it temporarily satisfies, but unless we tie meaning to your money, it doesn't generate lasting fulfillment. I'll tell you a story. When my wife and I redid our kitchen a couple years back, they put up all the plastic film and there was dust all over the house. Well, suddenly we were confined to one little area with a card table, a microwave, and a bunch of paper plates. And what we realized over 3 months was we actually got used to living sort of minimalistically. Once all the plastic came back down, the kitchen was reopened again, we had to retrain ourselves to use all this stuff that we realized we didn't really need. And I think a lot of people right now are asking themselves the same question. Do I want to go back to the same life I had before? And here's what I would tell you is what's at stake if you do that. If you go back to the same job or with the same mentality of, great, it's Monday morning again, and you feel those emotions that are like, I just have to grit through this till 5 o'clock, that is no way to live a life. What I'm offering is an alternative plan. And what the plan is look, figure out a way to tie in a generosity purpose. In other words, when you see an injustice that you want to help solve, is there a wrong that you want to help right? Is there a cause you want to be part of? Let that drive you to then why you want to go to work. I'll tell you a quick story. There was a gentleman I met with in my office a couple years back, and I could tell, when you see someone after a few months and the weight of the world is on their shoulders, it's just obvious. And I said, it's clear that there's something bothering you. Tell me what's going on. And he opened up and he said, Derrick, I've got this business, but I'm just not into it anymore. I feel like I'm mailing it in. I'm just showing up and not really feeling like I'm satisfied at the end of the day. And I just out of the blue asked him the question, is there a cause that's important to you? Well, that question really stunned him, and he sat back and he thought for a moment, and he said, a couple years back, our family went on a vacation overseas, and in this village that we were at, the tour guide said in this village, they need a school building so the kids can be properly educated. There were so many kids there, but they were really behind academically. And he made a note and said, wouldn't it be cool to do something? But he didn't know what to do. So just kind of let it go off the to-do list. So when I asked him the question, he said, I would love to help fund that school. And I said, what if you did this? What if you picked a sales goal for your business and you said you're going to increase sales by X percent, and then you took half of that gain and put it toward the school? Well, his eyes got as big as saucers. Suddenly, here was a guy that began to see some purpose in what he was doing. So he comes back in the office 3 months later. He looks younger. He's more energetic. He's excited. He says, Derrick, you're not going to believe this. Business is up almost 30%. We've already paid for half of that school. I don't get emotional, but he and I shared a tear together because here was a guy, tough, real built guy, had a business, but he realized that what he could do could really make an impact on people's lives, and it helped him make more money so that he could give more money away. It was a powerful realization in that one moment.
Derrick, how many people do you have this conversation with, or kind of try to get at something that they're passionate about, I guess, or that just struggle to find that thing? Like, what does that look like? And how do you maybe help somebody if they struggle to like that guy was like, oh, the school in Africa or wherever, like, does everybody have that? Or maybe your experience is most people have that thing that they would want to focus on.
Actually, most people don't. And so part of my job as we talk about good money is really giving people this option, this new opening of hope that they never thought was there. Most people, since they've grown up, have thought, I go to a job. In most cases, I don't like the job. My goal is to get through the day, come back home. It goes through that cycle till Friday. Then finally, I get a rest. But then typically about 4:00 on Sunday, that feeling comes back. Oh no, tomorrow's Monday again. And that cycle goes on for years and years and years. What I talk to people about is, look, when you think about your life, if money wasn't an object, if you could do whatever you wanted with your time, if you could take a blank piece of paper and design out exactly what you want, what would be on that piece of paper? How would you like to be remembered? What type of impact would you want? And more so, not just the word legacy, that when a person dies, what impact do you want to have right now while you're living, while you're working, while you're breathing, that you can enjoy seeing positive change in the world in real time? Well, they don't know what to do with that because they've been so ingrained of, I go to work, I go to work. So part of it is taking a pause. And what happens is they eventually, if I have to pull it out of them, or sometimes they can volunteer it, you know what? There is something I would love to do. And typically it relates to them, whether, let's say that they had an illness in their family. They may want to provide some sort of funding for research to help other families not struggle like they did. Or they may see an injustice in the world right now. They may see a wrong that they want to right. They may see whatever it may be, and they begin to realize, oh, I didn't think I could do much about that. They thought, I've got to be this huge donor that drops the cash on something to have any type of an impact. And what I tell them is, look, today's world is vastly different. When we think about the world, people think that's such a big, monumental thing to think about. As my friend Bob Goff, when I interviewed him, he said, Derrick, changing the world starts with walking across your street. So the world is simply the world in which you live, and just start small, and that's where you can begin to make an impact. That's where the momentum really begins.
I would imagine a lot of, like, when you say this, I think most of our listeners their heads start nodding. They're like, yeah, I want to. But the getting started on this, I mean, this is why people come to you and you help them manage their, not just their finances, but kind of their wealth and what they can do with it. Let's say you get somebody that's like, yeah. Like, if we're out here and we don't have you to hold our hand and guide us along, like, what does that next thing look like? I say, yeah, I want to change. I grew up in a household with domestic violence. Like, I'd want to make sure there was no other kids that had to experience that, right? Like, but what is that step that you take there?
So, as I like to talk about, when I sold my practice last year, there's a Spanish explorer named Cortez, and it was back 1450. And the story goes, he brought his soldiers on to take away the gold. You may know the story. And many people have tried to do that for many decades. But in his case, he told his men to burn the ships. And they looked at him puzzled. Well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to be going home in their ships. And figuratively and metaphorically, what that meant to me was, sometimes you've got to put your back against the wall and say, if it's not for me, it's not to be. And what I would encourage people listening right now is, do you want to live a life where it's just full of regrets and looking back saying, I wish I did this, or I could have, or I should have? Or do you want to start taking action right now? And there's so many, I call it the grooves in the brain. There's defaults. When I face pressure or I'm under stress, I do a certain way, I go a certain direction. And for people right now, it's a matter of just starting small. And so some people may listening may be saying, look, Derrick, I don't have any extra money at all. So part of this model is giving you a framework to then approach your boss, approach your supervisors and say, what would it take for me to make more money here? How could I add more value to the business? How could I help contribute to sales where you're not just asking for money? If you're an employer and someone says, can I get a raise? What's really the interest of me to grant that to them? But if you come to me and say, look, I found a way to increase sales of the company or increase profits, I'd like to get a portion of that, I'm all ears. And so it's tying people's ability to make money, but also give it, but not having known that you could connect those two in the past.
Chad is smiling, I think, because Ben talks about this stuff and you're getting even closer to us being like, we don't need Ben Kinney anymore. We got Derrick Kinney. Just step in here. We talk about that, like that idea of approaching your boss with your value proposition, right? Like, why am I worth more money here? Or what can I do inside of this organization to make me a more valuable employee? Not just, hey, can I get a raise?
Well, I'll tell you a story. So we had a couple that we were working with just recently, and she'd expressed, Derrick, all this sounds great, but I feel like we're not really making ends meet right now. How can I do this? And so it's really not practical for me to say, here's this great strategy, go do it. We've got to teach people how to fish, not just give them a fish. And so what I suggested to her was, it's a small family-owned business, and they basically sell different products. And she said, I actually know some people in my husband's circle that might have use of our company's product, but I've not really thought about introducing them because there's nothing really in it for me. And I said, why don't we do this? Let's write out a game plan. And so we began to write out some ideas to present to her boss. So I said, the first thing to do, and this will put your back against the wall, call your boss and schedule a time so it's on the calendar. So then you have to come through and write out a productive agenda. And I said, what are you going to say? Well, just say, look, I've got some ideas that I think might help grow the business that I thought you'd have an interest in. Well, who wouldn't want to take that meeting from one of your own employees? So he took the meeting. So she goes in and talks about, I took some time on my own time to talk to some of the salespeople, found out more about the product that we're building here at the company. And I've got some ideas with my husband's work. He's got contacts. And bottom line, there was some synergy there for to be some additional sales that could be created. And I said, if we were to do that, could I get a referral fee on those types of relationships? Well, the boss was really blown back because nobody had ever come to him with a way to increase business. They just always asked for the raise with nothing in it for the boss. So then she went on to say, and also I know that with the engineers that are here, it seems like everybody's kind of strapped for time. What if I went back on my own time and got a professional certification so I could offload some of what they're doing? And then upon passing it, you would reimburse me for it and give me a raise because we would generate more business then as well. Well, he had to think about that. So he brought her back in about a week later and said, yes to both. They set up a referral program, and actually he rolled it out to the entire company. So it was a big win for her for creating this idea and for the boss himself, but also it motivated her to advance herself. She probably was able to save them, tens of thousands of dollars in that first year, but it only cost her probably a $2,500 bonus is what he gave to her for passing that exam. So it's a win-win, but it's just a matter of approaching your employer in a way that's, as people often talk about, your favorite radio station is, WIIFM, what's in it for me?
I'm sitting here, Bob. You're right. I was smiling, and I'm still smiling because it sounds like we're listening to the Wealth series. Almost, right? We should have had Derrick here during our Wealth series. And folks, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, go visit winmakegive.com/wealth, or just scroll back into season 1 and go find our Wealth series, where we cover a lot of these topics in a lot of detail with our own Mr. Kinney instead of Derrick in this case. Now, Derrick, there's a lot of things we would love to talk to you about money. There's a lot of things I'd love to talk to you about, yet we're going to have a time limit. At some point, we're going to have to just say we hit it. So I want to make sure I ask this so that we definitely talk about it. And that is, it's Bob and I are learning-based people. Our audience are learning-based people. So we're learning, and we're happy to learn. But boy, I really wish I learned when I was 12, 13, 14, teenager, because Bob and I have both hidden when Ben talks about certain things, about how much money we've wasted on stuff and how much money we did on that if we only knew better when growing up.
Right.
Talk to us and our audience right now about how they can talk to their children about this. And I want you to know, I guarantee you, probably about at least 25% of our listeners right now are listening in the car, and their kids are listening. So talk to us about helping the next generation not have the same challenges we did when it came to money.
Well, see if you can relate to this. When I come home from the office, we typically sit around the dinner table, whichever kids are there. I've got 4 kids, and we talk about our day. And they say, well, Dad, how was your day? Well, I did this and that. There wasn't a whole lot of interest there. But if I say, you know what, I really screwed up today, I made one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made, suddenly I've got everybody's attention. And that becomes a teaching moment right there. I'm embarrassed, and I've got to sort of hand my hat of humility off. But what it does is it lets my kids know Dad is human. And I'll tell you a story on that. When I make mistakes, and I make them all the time, oftentimes we tend to hide those mistakes because it's embarrassing and it makes us think we're going to look bad to other people. And one of our guests on the podcast, her name was Kelsa Dickey, and she brought a concept to me, and she talked about just be curious with your kids. So many people think that I've got to be the expert on this subject matter to start a business, to invest. But all it really means is simply, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but why don't we learn together? And then you're deepening the relationship and you're learning something valuable. And what I would tell parents listening right now is think about the mistakes you've made, because your kids will love to hear about them, first of all, but also you can use that as a teaching moment. You know, COVID has presented so many teaching opportunities for our kids. I don't want to let a crisis go to waste. Let's make sure we take advantage of that. And one thing I would talk about is talking to my kids about, at times where I might buy an investment where I think it's very speculative, that made a whole lot of money and it was great, but the next week that same investment may have dropped half in value. And
Sounds
teaching
like
our
Bob's,
kids,
Robinhood account,
right. So
I
all
only
of those
tell my
things
wife and kids when my Dogecoin goes way up. I don't tell them about the next day when it comes all the way back down to the same place. Yeah, totally.
And it's important for our kids to see, well, how does mom and dad deal with that emotional competence, and how do we process all those kind of things? So what I would say to our kids right now, especially because one thing COVID has taught us is all of us are one global event away from losing our jobs. We saw entire industries decimated last year. So what I would encourage kids to do is to learn how to be the creator of wealth, not just the receiver of wealth. Well, what does that mean? Ultimately, that means for them to have their own business. Now, parents listening may think, Derrick, what do I know about teaching my kids about starting a business? I've never done that. I've got those same fears myself, and it's those same fears that often hold your kids back generation to generation. What I would say to you is this: go to YouTube, listen to this podcast, listen to other resources that will teach you how to start a business. And the goal is, hey, son or daughter, keep your full-time job, but begin to work a side gig, a side hustle at something that you enjoy doing, be able to monetize it, then gradually transition out of the full-time job into that new job. So the goal is where you become your own boss, and God forbid, whatever emergency or crisis comes up in the future, you're protecting yourself and your money and really your family's financial future.
Okay, so Bob, how old are the boys, the two little
3 and
ones?
5.
3 and 5. What can Bob teach his 3 and 5-year-olds now about how to handle money? Were you giving your kids an allowance and making them do certain things? Talk to us about those with the little kids that aren't ready for maybe the conversations of, hey, daddy failed, and they don't just think it's funny and laugh, but they are actually at a young age, they can still be learning something. What would you take to
I
those?
would say, Derrick, those things that we learn at this age, at the 3 to 5, 7, that those really formative years are just the foundational things that the rest of our life is broadcast on that foundation, right? So, I mean,
I agree.
it would be some very simple concepts, I think, at this age. What would they be?
Well, there's a couple ways to do it. The traditional way is obviously giving the allowance of, hey, we're going to give you money each week. I always like to tie that to a task that's completed because I think that ties in. If I do this work, then I receive a reward for it. But also teaching them along the way that, hey, being part of our family means that we do certain jobs. I'm giving this money to you so that you can see what it's like to do a job and get paid for it. Now, at 5 to 7, those ages there, they begin to get used to different brands. They begin to see what their friends are wearing, what type of phone they've got, all those kind of things. That's where I think there's a really cool opportunity, and that is teaching them how to buy into trends. For example, if your son or daughter sees that, hey, their friends wear a certain type of shoe, or they're wearing a certain type of clothing brand, or have a phone, whatever the case may be, then you want to ask them, do you think your other friends have those same clothes and electronics as well? And it gets them thinking, yeah, they probably do. Well, that might be an investment then we go into, and I'll help you set up the account. We can track it so they can see, wow, that's how stocks work. If there's a lot of demand for something, oftentimes the price goes up. If the demand goes down, oftentimes it goes down. So very basic financial principles, I think, are really key right then.
I love that. I love that. We've talked on this show, I think, Chad, at least before the show anyway, about like that idea of when the first iPod came out, for example. If you had taken how much it cost to buy that iPod way back whenever the heck that was, 97 or whatever, and you bought Apple stock, that Apple stock would be worth a whole lot of money today, right? And you can go, if you were to Google, like, I don't know, what is Apple stock worth today versus the product price? There's this whole chart. It's like, if you bought the first iMac, what would that be worth if you'd actually bought Apple stock instead? That's a really great, like, I feel like I want to just, every time we walk into Target, if my boys are like, I want to buy that, I'll be like, we'll put $1 into their stock or something, right?
Every time I click on something from Amazon, I should be forced to spend 10% of it buying their stock or something along those lines. It would probably be, that's something that they need to be doing. Bezos needs to be, hey, listen up, Jeff. You need to be changing that on Amazon that we can start buying stock while we're at it. All right. So, Derrick, you're helping us talk to our next generation. Yet, you've got this term, and I love this term, and I'm going to say it wrong because, of course, it's always big words, and they always make me stumble when I have to read them, right? It's philanthropic investor.
Chad, look at you.
Talk to us about this term, the philanthropic investor.
Yeah, so the goal of this is thinking about your money as a tool. And there's two parts of it. One is so many people think, well, I worked hard to earn this money. Now I can do whatever I want to with it. And oftentimes that means parking the money in a low interest checking account, savings account, or they're buying things that have no option of appreciating in value. They may buy the coffee, this or that, and those things are okay. But always asking yourself, is what I'm buying, does it have the potential to increase in value? And that mentality is really, really powerful. So, how that becomes philanthropic is thinking about, look, I work hard for my money. I want my money to work equally as hard for me. And one of the ways to do that, again, is to tie in this generosity principle of what is the cause that really drives me. If I was retired and financially independent, what would be places I would want to invest my time to make a difference in the world? And one of the pieces of that is what I call the people portfolio. Now, what this is, I find I love to invest in stocks. I really enjoy making money, seeing it grow and so forth. But one of the best investments and one of the most fulfilling investments I can make is in the people around me. And here's what this looks like. At the 5-year-old level, 7-year-old level, at the dinner table, asking your kids, hey, we want to start a family giving fund, and we're going to put a couple dollars in this envelope every week. Who are some friends of yours or things that you feel like we would want to give money to? And what that does is it puts on their little antennas. They begin looking around to listen in class. Hey, so-and-so's dad lost their job. So-and-so's mom has an illness. Or there's this cause I heard about. I want to do something about it. Well, now as a family, we're having this dialogue, and that becomes the DNA of your family that, hey, we work hard and our money works hard for us, but we work hard to make a difference in the world as well. So that's on the child level. But let's say, for example, I'll tell you a story. There was a woman who we knew that was at a different church, but we knew of her. And she really loved to sing at these different youth camps and always wanted to record an album to get her music out. Well, she didn't have the money to record the album. Well, word got back to us, and a couple of us chipped in. We anonymously sent her money to do the recording. And so I'd kind of forgotten about it. About 3 months later, inside the CD, we picked up a copy and it said, "To whoever sent me the money, thank you for making my dream possible." Now, she won't know who that was, but it felt so good to have taken action and B, helped make a small difference in her life. Because some people just need one little attaboy, I believe in you, to really drive them. That may be the student on your street that needs that one semester junior college paid for. Or maybe somebody who really is smart, but they haven't come from a background where there's money that's there, to help them go to a class or go to some kind of a personal growth seminar. All those things just keep your antennas up. And I like to do just kind of think of open hands. And I'm guessing Ben probably talks about that as well. He's talked about everything else I've talked about. Where our money, so much of our
Kinney family thing, obviously.
So much of our hands are kind of clenched fists. It's like, this is what I have. I don't want to lose it. But if we just open up our hands and know that that money goes back and forth, we're simply the steward of it, and we want to be good stewards of it. It's a whole different mentality. And I'll tell you one other story real quick. I built my business on giving. And I didn't know it at the time, but we would support local teachers and recognize students of the month, teachers of the month, because I had a passion for education. What happened about 6 months later was people would call the office and say, "Hey, are you taking on new clients?" I said, "Well, sure." I said, "Well, why are you calling me?" "Well, we saw your picture in the newspaper giving an award to teachers, and we like teachers." Well, I didn't realize it, but people would begin to work with me because of the cause they believed in lined up. So then they realized by working with Derrick, we're getting good wealth advice, but we're also helping make a difference in the world at the same time. And so what I would tell your listeners is if you have a business, if you can identify a cause and say, "Hey, going forward, a percentage of our sales, we're going to support this cause, or we're going to do this." I think, and we see this time and time again, people's businesses increase because people are actually willing to pay even more if they know that your product and service is good, but that you're making a real dent in the world.
I love that. I mean, that's win, make, give. Like, it's a big philosophy of ours. We support, we have a place up in Bellingham called Lydia's Place that's a home for single moms.
Whoa. You said Bellingham?
Yeah.
Okay. This is going to get fun. I was born in Bellingham, Washington.
Get out of here.
Okay, Ben's out. Ben's out.
Are you serious?
You got Derrick.
Serious. Yeah. So it's so funny because, born in Bellingham. Don't remember it because we moved around 6 times before the 6th grade. But my grandparents lived in Wenatchee, Washington, right there on the Columbia River. My grandfather had a cherry orchard, and he was really the first person that I saw that successfully managed money in our family. He would get up at 5 a.m, put on his rubber boots, traunch through the orchard, watering and stuff, then go to Alcoa on the pot line.
Alcoa up in Whatcom County until it got shut down about a year ago, but yeah.
Yeah, then he'd come back and do the same thing at night for the orchard, repeated that over and over again, bought himself some rental properties, actually rented out the orchard. I didn't know it at the time, but this was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that looked like a giant house when I was a kid. But here my grandfather was modeling for me, without even uttering a word about it, what it meant to manage my money well. Now, when he died, and I'm a kind of an object-oriented person, my mom said, "What would you like of his?" And I said, "Well, I don't need a whole lot, but I like his hard hat." And so I have his Alcoa hard hat with his miner's lamp and a picture of him wearing the hard hat in a glass enclosed case in my office. And the reason it's there is because every day I want to honor him and what he did for our family with what I have as well. And I want to make sure that what I'm doing would make him proud because of how well he managed his money to make an impact on me and our family. So small world, man.
Yeah, that is a
I live around the corner from
that Alcoa,
there.
yeah.
So yeah, wow, that's getting freaky, right? So but it's having that purpose behind things you were saying so that we will connect. Bob was talking about, Ben has a purpose with the food bank that he's giving so much money to because it matters to him. And there are people who will do business with Ben's real estate team just because they know it's going to then also contribute back to Lydia's Place or things like that. We are actually doing here in season 2 of Win, Make, Give, that what we're doing is that we're making a donation in every episode. So we're picking a charity from every episode from our audience members. So hopefully you're in our Facebook group, everybody listening, right? Facebook.com/group/win, make, give. Because we ask every now and then when we need a new group of charities. And every episode we assign a charity to. And for the number of listens it gets in the first 30 days, we match with a donation.
That's awesome.
We're going to come back to that because that's usually at the end. But boy, it's amazing how we find people that we connect with so well with the beliefs, the models, the systems. And Derrick, you even have the name. Okay, so
the genealogy or what? Like, you're born in Bellingham? Get out of here! There's a million cities in the United States, Derrick. That's crazy.
And he's here, right?
That's funny.
All right, so Derrick, let's give everybody out there some tips just to wrap this up. Some quick, short. You're a money guy. You know how money works. Let's get everybody out of debt, right? We talk about it during the wealth series. We talk about it all the time, how debt is that anchor, that debt stops so many things that you could do or you'd want to do. Give me 2-3 quick tips on, hey, I want to get myself out of debt. Where do I start? Because I don't even know where to begin.
Well, so many people think of debt as this overwhelming word. Yes, it's a 4-letter word, and typically 4-letter words are bad, so let's treat it as such. But simply write down on a piece of paper, here's what I owe minus what I own. And the goal, just like you go to the doctor, it's a financial x-ray to show here's where I stand right now in this moment. I am where I am, which sounds so simple, but so many people don't want to face the reality of where they stand right now. So I would say that's step 1. Step 2 is, what do you want your ideal situation to be? Jack Canfield in the Success Principles, one of my favorite authors, wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. He talks about creating that ideal scene. What is it that you want, regardless of where you're at now or your past? What do you want the future to look like? And that can really help drive people. If they begin to talk about, look, I want to take, instead of having debt, I want to build up assets. I want to invest in things I care about. If that picture can be so compelling and you can tie an emotion to it. And what I often do in my yearly goal setting is with my family, we'll talk about, write down the word of how you will feel when you accomplish this goal. And I want you to close your eyes and imagine where you're going to be and how it will feel, and let that drive you when things get hard. And so knowing that you've built up the debt, it's going to be even harder to pay it down. But if you can have that emotion, have a cause that you tie it to, that, look, if I want to give to this cause, I've got to get my house in order so I can help make other people's houses more tenable to live in. Let's say it's Habitat for Humanity, whatever that may be. You can tie those together, it can be a real driver. But ultimately, we want to make it easy. The goal is to pay yourself first. I'm a big fan of The Richest Man in Babylon. I love that book. It's a book I read probably twice a year as a little dessert for myself. It's so good, but it just talks about some simple concepts. Pay yourself first, pay off the debt, and then over time, you're building up assets, and paying yourself along the way is really the key.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you want to take action on Derrick's first step, which is to, figure out where you're at, we have a thing on the Win, Make, Give website. It's called a net worth tracker. You can go in there. We've built this whole deal that can help you guys figure out, because you have some debts like my mortgage, which when I put my net worth together is actually a positive because my house is worth more than the debt that I owe on it, right? So you guys, it's called the net worth tracker. You can find it on the Win, Make, Give website, winmakegive.com. That's that first step he talked about. Like, give yourself an honest assessment of where you sit today. And you can't do that unless you unless you know where everything's at, right?
Bob, I'm so proud of you for being the play-by-play guy there. That's usually my
I
job to
stepped
make
you
sure
on your
that.
toes, but
No, not at all. I love it. Right. So Bob's absolutely right that we want to send you there and grab that. Now, Derrick, we give them some great tools on our winmakegive.com website because of it. You have some great tools as well that you're willing to share with the audience who's listening. How do they connect with you? How do they get their hands on some of those tools that you have? Help us out.
Yeah, so you can go to goodmoneyframework.com. That's goodmoneyframework.com. And on the website, we've got a couple downloadables, and we want people to download them because they're real conversation starters and actually can help you move the ball forward. So many people shy away from money, don't know what to say or what to do. They feel like they've got to have that perfect conversation. Just read these with the people you care about, and suddenly the dialogues happen. One of them is ways to counteract the negative beliefs that people have about money. A lot of people grew up where money was the source of all evil. It was what caused their family to be held back, and they grew up thinking that, and they may still have that opinion. We want to debunk those myths that are there. The other downloadable is around how to talk to your kids about money. We scratched the surface on that, but it goes deeper in terms of some questions to talk with your kids about and really get them engaged. And also last is talking about the 7-step good money framework, step by step, how to move from where you're at today to adding that generosity piece to make more money so you can give more money and actually have the fulfilling life that you've always wanted.
And they can ask you a question if they actually have something direct for you that they're like, I just want to ask this guy this. They can go right there and ask you a question on the website, and you'll be responding to those.
Happy to do it. And you both do such a great job at this, but money is so complicated for people. I just find if I can make it easy to understand, that's what causes people to take action. And so we just want to keep it simple, keep it real, and off to the races we go.
We often say around here, people complicate things to justify their inaction. So they think money's this complicated thing, and it justifies me not doing anything with it. I'm telling you, man, this guy, if Ben, like you are slot 1A, my friend, for a co-host.
This was not, folks, this is not set up, right? It doesn't matter how we go about booking our guests on the show, yet I'm going to tell you, we hit this one out of the park with this guest because, yeah, we're putting you on the short list to replace Ben if something comes up, because the conversations just will continue. So that was goodmoneyframework.com, folks. Go check it out if you want. Now, Derrick, earlier I mentioned that Win, Make, Give here in season 2, we are donating to charities based on the listens that an episode gets in the first 30 days. So we hope that you share this with your network and help blow this up and we can make a donation. Yet in your honor, we're going to ask you, what charitable organization will we be making a donation to around this episode?
Yeah, so, I was thinking about that. There's a local organization. I'm going to change what I said earlier. It's called the Arlington Life Shelter. And we actually, as part of our Rotary Club, recently produced some life skills videos for these homeless clients. And I got to meet one of them last week, and he talked about the impact of all things the budgeting video that we did would help improve his situation. And so I picked that charity only because it's local and I see the personal impact it's making on people's lives.
You know what's interesting, Chad, is a lot of the folks that we've had on go local. Like almost all of them, I think, have picked some kind of a local charity that they can. I don't know, Derrick. Like I don't know, like you got to actually experience the results of that. I don't know how many people get to experience the results of the charity work or the donations that we make on their behalf. But it's awesome to see people want to, like you said, we can change the world by walking across the street, right? We can feel that impact when we make it at a local level. Love it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and it does cause you to get your hands dirty. So many people want to do things from a distance, but I just find you've got to risk feeling uncomfortable. You've got to take that risk to really make an impact in people's lives. And it's funny because perfection is the enemy of action. And so many people think I've got to have my act fully together before I can make an impact in the world. And what I would say, the messier you are, the more you can actually help a world that's pretty messed up. You're going to fit in really well and people will relate to you. And that's what we need right now is just people that take action, that are willing to say, look, I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to do the hard part. I'm going to go make more money so I can do more good.
Love it.
I could have just closed it right there, right? Even finished with do more good. I mean, he's taking my tagline, Bob. All right, folks, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation with the other Mr. Kinney, who we might be bringing this guy back. We might be having to put Ben and Derrick together just to prove to you that they are two individual people.
I would love to have Derrick back. I want to spend a whole talking around the idea of like the mindset people have around money being bad. I think that there's a lot to discover there, Derrick. I mean, you have a whole, download that we could go, and I would love to have you back and focus on that, like the mindset around money and why we grow up thinking money is bad and how we can change that mindset. So if you're open to it, man, we'd love to have you back at some point here soon.
Cleared with Ben, because after what's happened today, he may not want to see me just from a job security standpoint. But if he blesses it, I'm game.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Perfect. That'll be the first episode Ben has ever bothered to bless, because Bob and I just go ahead and do what we're going to do anyway. Folks, we hope you're having fun like we do, and that you continue to learn just like we are here on the Win, Make, Give podcast. We hope you will share this episode with everybody. We hope you have subscribed, of course, and we hope you've joined us in our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/win-make-give, where we keep the conversation going after the episodes. Until our next episode, on behalf of both Mr. Kinneys, Bob Stewart, and myself, Chad Himes, remember, do good.